So it's quite helpful sometimes to empty our mind of all the chatter. Just put the thoughts aside and listen or observe just to the silence in the mind, the peace in the mind when there isn't all that chatter. And it's at that time that we can see how noisy and distracting the afflictions are. And within that quiet of the mind, we can then turn our focus to compassion or to impermanence and emptiness. And in that space in the mind, we can generate a sincere motivation for our practice. So usually when it's explained, they use the example of seeds and sprouts. And that works, except, it works to help you understand the ideas, except sometimes you get stuck in your gardening class and you forget to relate that to happiness and suffering or the arisal of the body, or you forget to relate it to other things, which are the real point of the refutation. So we have to make sure that we, don't just stay with gardening. Okay. So the first question: does a thing arise from itself? So is it produced from itself? So remember that each of these was self, other, both, and causelessly, was in response to a view that was popular in one of the non-Buddhist schools of that time. Okay, so the Samkhya school believes that there is a primal or universal substance that is the cause from which things arise. Kind of like a cosmic substance, and everything comes out of that. They say things arise from self because they exist in an unmanifest form within their cause, as one nature with this primal substance prior to their arising. So within this primal substance, one nature with it, are the things in an unmanifest form, but they're there. If this were the case, a cause and effect, and its effect would exist simultaneously. Okay, again, that same difficulty. That would mean that an old man would exist in a newborn baby. Yeah, sometimes we feel like that, don't we? We look at something and we say, oh, the result's in there. What we're really thinking is the potential for that result the potential of this cause to bring that result is there. But we focus so much on the result that we think the result is right there in the cause. But it's not. Because if it were, the old man would exist in the newborn baby, and a sprout would exist in a seed, and cake would exist in flour. That would be nice, and you wouldn't have to bake it, huh? If cause and result existed at the same time, yet the result still needed to arise and become manifest, 4 consequences would follow. First, the sprout wouldn't need to arise because it already existed in the cause, and its arising would be senseless. Okay? The old man's already there. He doesn't need to arise. Okay? Or second, the seed would never cease because it could exist at the same time of the sprout. In that case, that seed could keep producing one sprout after another, because it wouldn't cease when its result came, because it could exist at the same time as the result. Third, we would be able to see the seed and its resultant sprout at the same time. So you could look at the seed, and in the seed also see the sprout. Okay, you can look in the baby and also see the old person. Or 4, if the sprout existed as one nature with the seed, they would be inherently one and the same. In that case, we could not differentiate the seed from the sprout. Yeah. In which case, do you have a seed or do you have a sprout? Okay, producer and produced, so the agent and the object would be exactly the same. So that is problematic. Okay. Some people nowadays hold a similar view. For example, thinking the future is predetermined and already exists in an unmanifest form at present. We meet people like that, don't we? Yeah? Future's already there. It's unmanifest in the present. It's already planned out. You know, maybe it's God's will, or maybe it's the, who knows what it is. Yeah? Contemplating the faults of arising from self dispels these views. So I know a lot of people talk about parallel universes. I'm not quite sure what that means. Is it like a duplicate universe and the same things are happening? Anyway, see, if you come across that idea, I don't really understand it. I just hear the word. You can apply some of these refutations and see if, they help clarify the issue. Then the second thing, does a thing arise from other? Yeah. So does something, the sprout, our body, our life, pain, happiness, does it arise from something inherently other? Here it doesn't mean just other, because if it's just plain conventional other, then it's true, things arise from things that are not them. The cause is not the result. But here we're talking from inherently existent other. Okay, that's what we're refuting. So some Buddhists assert that things arise from causes that are inherently different from them. While on the nominal level cause and effect are distinct, they certainly aren't identical, are they? These Buddhists believe that the difference between the seed and the sprout is inherent and not merely posited by mind. So the seeds are a real seed and the sprouts are a real sprout. If the seed and the sprout were inherently other, they would be totally unrelated. Okay? If things are totally unrelated, can they be cause and effect? No. The sprout would then have the same kind of relationship with the seed that it has with any other thing, because everything would be inherently distinct from the sprout. Okay. There would be no special relationship between a sprout and the seed, because all things would be the same in being inherently other than the seed, and thus totally unrelated. A sprout could then arise from a rock, and happiness could arise from non-virtue. So again, causality falls apart in the context of inherent existence. Conventionally, a sprout grows from a seed. They are part of the same continuum. However, inherently different things cannot be part of the same continuum because they would be independent from and have no relationship with other things. Remember, that's the meaning of inherent existence. Chandrakirti in his Prasanapada, or clear words, says, if things, volitional factors, sprouts, and so forth, have inherent nature, then what need have these existing things for causes and conditions? So if they have an inherent nature, they already exist. Why do they need causes and conditions to, produce them? They don't. If the seed and the sprout existed inherently, totally independent of each other, they could exist at the same time. However, when the seed exists, we speak of the sprout that is about to arise from it. Okay, so this came kind of, we touched on this a little bit this morning, somebody's question. Okay, when the seed exists, we talk about the sprout that is about to arise from it. Okay, but that sprout that is about to arise, even though we use the word sprout, that is about to arise, that sprout does not yet exist. It has not yet, they say, attained its entity. It is not yet a sprout. Okay? It's something that is merely designated in dependence upon an accumulation of several of the causes, but not all of the causes and conditions of the sprout. So remember when we talked about future phenomena? Okay? The future sprout is not a real sprout. It's something that's labeled in dependence upon the, principal cause of the sprout, but not all of the factors to produce the sprout are there. Because if they were there, then the sprout would be there. Okay, so when the seed exists, we can talk about the future sprout, and we can talk about the sprout that's about to arise from it. And we often do. Yeah, we often give the name of the result to the cause. Okay. After we plant carrot seeds, even before anything appears above the ground, conventionally we say the carrot is growing. Is there a carrot there? No. Okay. It's the future carrot that's growing. There's no carrot there. But you see, we still talk about the carrot. Yeah. We say the carrot's growing. Actually, what's happening is the seed is in the process of changing. Yeah. In fact, the carrot is in the process of arising, while the seed is in the process of ceasing. Okay, because remember, cause and effect can't exist at the same time. So while the result is in the process of coming into being, the cause is in the process of ceasing. Okay. At that time, the carrot does not exist, because if it did, cause and effect would exist simultaneously, which is impossible. The result arises only when the cause has ceased. Okay. So, in other words, we may say the carrot is growing, even though there's no carrot there that's doing the growing. There's no existing carrot that's doing the growing. There's just the seed that's changing. Yeah, but we're talking about the carrot as a future phenomena that is in the process of coming into existence. What would be, trying to think of how we talk about children sometimes. What would be an example the way we talk about a child as, it's a baby, and you say, oh, here's the young woman or the young man. Yeah, it's a baby. Yeah, but it's in the process of growing like that. 3 of the modes of arising from self, both, and without a cause do not exist even conventionally. Okay? Ultimate analysis is not needed to refute them. However, things arise from others that are conventionally different from them. Okay. Therefore, qualifying this thesis with inherently is important. A sprout does not inherently arise from a seed. Okay. If we simply said that a sprout does not arise from a seed, we would be very ignorant. Okay. Then the third alternative, does a thing arise from both self and other? So the Jains in ancient India and today believe that a clay pot arises from clay, which is inherently the same as it, and a potter who is inherently other than it. So that sounds kind of good. The pot arises due to the clay, and the clay is inherently one with the pot, and the potter who's different, so it arises from both self and other. Okay, while it's true that a clay pot arises due to both clay and the potter's efforts, neither of these is inherently the same as or inherently different from the pot. Okay, so in the context of inherent existence, things have to be either identical or totally unrelated. They can't simply be dependent because they have their own nature if they're inherently existent. Arising from both self and others is susceptible to the faults of both positions individually. Then, fourth alternative, does a thing arise without a cause? So in ancient India, there was one school called the Travakas. They were the materialists or hedonists. So they do not refute obvious cause and effect, as in a sprout arising from a seed. So that's obvious. They can see that. However, since they cannot explain the causes for the colorful design of a peacock's feather or the roundness of peas, they say that these things arise without cause. Nowadays, some people believe that miraculous experiences occur without causes. Don't they? Yeah. Other people believe that events occur randomly without any cause. Buddhists explain that every functioning thing must have causes. While at present we might not know what all these causes are, as our knowledge, wisdom, and meditative ability, we may not know what all these causes are, okay, but as our knowledge, wisdom, and meditative abilities develop, we may come to know these. Yeah. So we often, when something happens and we don't understand how it happens, we say magic or miracle. What that basically means is we don't know all the causes and conditions. Or as His Holiness jokes, when we don't understand why something happens, we just say, oh, it's karma, meaning I don't know. We just put it on karma, but we don't really understand karma. Okay. if things arose without causes, several faults would occur. One, nothing would arise because there would be nothing to cause it to come into existence. Two, things would arise chaotically and unpredictably. What arises at one time and in one situation could arise any time and anywhere, because the arising of the thing would not be constrained by requiring causes that have the ability to produce it. Flowers could grow in ice, and a pine cone could produce a rose. Okay? Because cause and effect would be chaos. Okay, and then the third consequence was all efforts to attain goals would be useless because things would happen randomly. So we would never set about to do anything to get a certain result because everything would just occur randomly without any cause. But that's not how we live our lives. Initially, we ascertain if things exist inherently, they would have to exist in one of the four ways. Then, with analysis, we examine and see the absurd consequences that follow if things arose in any of these ways, and conclude that they cannot arise in any of the four ways. Okay. We can then conclude that because things do not arise in any of the four ways, they are empty of inherent existence. So just negating each one of the four ways individually is not the realization of emptiness. You have to negate each of the four and then conclude that those, because those are the only four ways that things could exist if they were inherently existent, they were all disproved. Therefore, the things are empty of inherent existence. So I know this is tough. You're eager for the next section. It's coming. But it's good to listen to this, even if you don't understand all of it completely, because someday you will have more teachings on it, and then something in your mind will go, oh, yeah, I remember hearing something about that before, and it won't seem so strange. Okay, language, including words such as arising and ceasing, is a means to understand things. It is an approximation of reality. We cannot find the exact moment in which a sprout arises. We say, here's the seed, and here's the sprout. Can you find the exact moment when the seed becomes the sprout? We might arbitrarily draw a line, but that's our arbitrary line, isn't it? Can you actually look into that whole process of transformation and see seed, 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 and then boing, sprout, 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 sprout? And would everybody agree with you just by observing that process of the seed ceasing and the sprout arising? Would everybody agree with you about that? No. So we make an arbitrary line and say this is this and this is that. So your income tax has to be postmarked by midnight of April 15th. It's just a random, somebody made up a time and said that, It's not that everything turns into a pumpkin at 12:01, okay? Yeah. But somebody just made an arbitrary thing. Kind of like, the border between the U.S. and Mexico. Exactly where is it? Sometimes it's in the middle of the Rio Grande River. So again, the same thing as we had yesterday. This drop of water, is this Mexican water or U.S. water? Where exactly is it? Sometimes towns, when there's a car accident, when you're on the border between the two towns, Yeah, they have to figure out which police department and which emergency department come and save you. Yeah, is your car on this, further on this side or further on this side? What happens if your car's exactly in the middle? You know, then maybe nobody comes and gets you. Okay, but these are all arbitrary. We can't really demarcate this stuff. Yeah. Like you say, I graduated from high school. When was the exact moment you graduated from high school? Was it when you finished your last exam? Was it when you got the grade from the exam? Was it at the graduation ceremony? In the graduation ceremony, was it at the beginning of the ceremony? Was it when you stood up? Was it when you got your diploma? Was it at the end of the ceremony? Exactly when did you graduate from high school? Okay, so you begin to see these things are not so clear. They're decided by term and concept. Just, you know, we kind of decide at what point what to call something. So we cannot find the exact moment in which a sprout arises. The causal process of the seed producing a sprout makes sense only on this nominal level. It cannot be explained within a framework where things possess inherent nature. When discussing the reasoning refuting the four extremes of arising, we often use the example of a sprout or another common object. However, when meditating, apply this reasoning to anger, dukkha, the path to liberation, and so forth, and contemplate how they arise. So do a little of an analysis, you know. How does your anger arise? What is the substantial cause, the principal cause that turns into your manifest anger? And at what moment does that seed of anger in your mind stream become anger? Can you find it? And what really is the cause of the anger? Quite interesting. Yeah. Oh, that other person's the cause of my anger. He insulted me. So when did your anger start? Yeah, when he opened his mouth? When he said the whole thing, but before you heard it? When the sound waves touched your ear? Yeah, exactly when did your anger arise? And did that person's words, was that actually the thing that turned into your anger? If those words had the potential to, the seed of anger were in those words, yeah, then how's that producing your anger? Then would your anger, how would that if the seed of anger were in that person's words, then how does it produce your anger? That's an outside cause. Yeah, produced from other. Isn't it? Anyway, very good to examine. And then you can never say to anybody, you made me angry again. Because you realize they are not the cause of your anger. Yeah, that the principal cause of the anger is the seed of anger in our own mental continuum. Yeah. Okay, next section. Are you celebrating? It's called Selfless and Deceptive. Okay, so a lot of times, you know, when we talk about things being empty of inherent existence, we say that they don't exist the way they appear. They appear inherently existent, but that is a false appearance, because in actual fact, they exist dependently, and they are empty of inherent existence. So here's some ways in which the two traditions talk about things being selfless or empty, but also deceptive or false, appearing one way but existing in another way. So people appear to be real people, they are actually empty of inherent existence. Doesn't mean they're non-existent, but it means that how they're appearing to us and how we grasp them is incorrect, is deceptive. According to Madhyamikas, dependently arising products are like reflections. They are false in that they appear to exist inherently, although they do not. For example, although there is not a real face in the mirror, the appearance of a face exists. Do you agree? You look in the mirror, the appearance of a face is there. The reflection of the face is there. There is no face in the mirror. Okay. This appearance exists due to causes and conditions. The mirror, the face on the outside, the light, and so forth. Similarly, although persons and phenomena do not exist inherently, they appear and exist due to causes and conditions. They are falsities in that they appear inherently existent, although they are not. The notion of phenomena being deceptive appears in the Pali Suttas. The Buddha said all dhammas, meaning phenomena, are not self. That's in the Dhammapada. And the Sutta Nipata speaks of phenomena as coreless and essenceless. He who does not find core or substance in any of the realms of being, this means they're not finding inherent existence in any of the realms of being. Like flowers which are vainly sought in fig trees that bear none. Okay, I guess fig trees don't have flowers. Yeah. But you're looking for a flower. You can't find a flower in the same way as if you look in any of the realms of being, you can't find a real, truly existent object that exists from its own side. Such a monastic gives up the here and the beyond, just as a serpent sheds its worn-out skin, meaning such a person attains liberation. They give up the cause of samsara. And then another quote from the Sutta Nipata. This world completely lacks essence. It trembles in all directions. So it says it lacks essence. It doesn't say it doesn't exist. It trembles. It's impermanent. But you can't find it. The Buddha said the aggregates are hollow, void, and insubstantial. Regarding the form aggregate, he says, Bhikkhus, suppose that this river Ganges was carrying along a great lump of foam. A person with good eyesight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, and insubstantial. For what substance could there be in a lump of foam? So too, bhikkhus, whatever kind of form there is, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a bhikkhu inspects it, ponders it, and carefully investigates it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, and insubstantial. Okay, so think of a person that you are really attached to. Yeah, that you think is just wonderful. You want to be with them. They're the light of your life. Okay, somebody who's really important to you in your life. Okay. Then, who is that person? Or what is that person? Yeah, what is it that is so important to you? Is it their body? Yeah, is it their mind? Is it their feelings of happiness and suffering that you're so attached to? Just those, nothing else? Or maybe their discriminations, or their moods and emotions, or their mental consciousness? Yeah. Can you identify exactly who that person is, or what is exactly the thing that you find so charming and wonderful about them? Can you do that? Can you find anything? Okay. So do you feel differently about the person after you do that kind of analysis? Yeah. It's also very good to do with somebody you don't like. Yeah. Exactly who is that person? Everybody's so upset. Donald Trump. Who is Donald Trump? Now, I know you're going to say it's his hair. Okay. But if you just had that pile of orange hair there, are the same emotions going to arise towards you, towards that pile of hair? Yeah? You might even take it and see how you looked at it. Or you might throw it away and say, get it out of here. Okay. But exactly who is Donald Trump? Is it his body? Which body? We've seen all these pictures of him since he was little, and then, when he went to military school and blah, blah. Yeah. Which body is he? Yeah. Is he his mind? Is he his anger? Oh, he's anger. That means the person and anger are completely inseparable. So that when you thought anger, you would see him. And when you thought of him, you only see anger. You wouldn't see his hair. Because if he's his anger, then he and the anger are completely union oneness. Yeah? Yeah. Who is he really? Yeah. Yeah? Who is he? Yeah. Can you find who he is? Is he his brain? If you had that brain out there, would that brain be president? I don't think so. Would you say, I hate that brain? Would you even know it was Donnie's brain? Okay, very good to do this kind of analysis. Okay, So then the Buddha then proceeds to use a similar verse for each of the other aggregates to show that they too are void, hollow, and insubstantial. When you look for the core of what Donald Trump is, what are you going to find? What are you going to isolate? Yeah, do you get some sense of insubstantiality here? The Buddha did not say that Dhammas were ultimates. Abbey Dharma commentators said that the four elements and so forth were ultimate, in that they are the irreducible components of existence, that is, the final items of analysis of which all other things are composed. Pali Abhidhammikas did not say that they were partless particles, as did the Sarvastivadins. Still, they saw the aggregates and so forth as more real than things that were designations, or things that existed by concept. Nagasena in the Malandapana said that the chariot does not possess ultimate reality, but its components do. Yeah, so this is the whole thing. If you remember when we studied the Vaibhasikas and Satantrikas, except they said that they were partless particles. Okay, the Pali tradition doesn't say they're partless, but whether or not they're partless or not, they're the smallest unit of something. Okay, so they were called ultimate because they were the smallest unit. But do they possess some ultimate reality that larger objects don't? Okay, so apparently to the early people, the whole does not possess ultimate reality, but the smallest parts do, because they can't be broken up further. I guess scientists might agree. If they could find a smallest particle, would they say that's like an ultimate reality because it's the smallest building block of everything? Yeah, and then, no? Yeah, but then maybe they would say the energy is the smallest thing. I don't know.
Then they will try to find what makes the energy.
Yeah. And see, this is the whole thing. When you keep looking, where does the energy come from? You're looking for some absolute point of beginning. You're looking for something that's produced without a cause. Yeah? And from a Buddhist viewpoint, you're never going to find that, because everything is produced from a cause. Yeah. So in that sense, nothing has any ultimate reality in that it's imbued with some form of existence that nothing else has. But it seems like the early Dhammikas, the Abhidharma people, the whole doesn't possess ultimate reality, but all its parts do, somehow. The Sarvastivada school was popular in northern India, and its views later spread to Tibet as the Vaibhasika tenets. The Sarvastivadins were substantialists. They were really substantialists, much more than the Pali Abhidhammikas, attributing to phenomena and persons an ontological existence that they in fact did not have. Specifically, the Sarvastivadins said that past and future phenomena were substantially existent. They were really there, even though they were past and future. Okay. So maybe this is, it's hard to understand, but they're substantially existent. Nagarjuna must have come into contact with these views, and seeing them as contrary to the Buddha's intent, he refuted svabhava, or nature, essence, inherent existence, on phenomena as well as on persons. In doing so, he expanded the meaning of self, saying all phenomena are selfless. The Abhidhammika's view is contrasted with suttas, in which the Buddha clearly says that all dhammas are unreal, deceptive, and false. So here is an interesting point in investigating the historical development of ideas. You have some suttas talking about the phenomena being unreal, deceptive, and false. And then the later Abhidhammikas, who developed the Abhidharma stuff, disagreeing and saying that they were substantially existent. Anyway, here's from the suttas. That is false, bhikkhu, which has a deceptive nature, and that is true, which has an undeceptive nature, nirvana. So those of you who have been studying the two truths, we've learned that emptiness, the ultimate truth, is true because it exists the way it appears to the principal mind that cognizes it. But all the veiled truths, the functioning things around us, are false because they do not exist the way they appear. They appear true to ignorance, but they are not true because they don't exist the way they appear. They are false. So it's interesting here, what is true here is nirvana. So it's already linking nirvana with emptiness. Okay. In the Pali tradition, you have a breakthrough and you realize nirvana. But selflessness you realize before nirvana. Okay, so the Buddha also states that name and form, mentality and materiality, are deceptive, untrue, and unreal. So name and form, our mind and our body. So here's another sutta passage. Let me think. What has been considered true by the world of humans, together with God's Mara, Brahma, and among the renunciates, Brahmins, gods, and humans, that has, by the Aryas, through their perfect knowledge, been seen well to be false. So what are those things that the world considers true that Aryas consider false? Okay? This card, the tissues, you, me, the building. When we look at any of these things, we think they're true. In other words, how they appear is actually how they exist. And how they appear to us is as if they had some kind of objective existence out there, such that anybody who came into this room would see them the exact same way that we did, because they have this objective existence. Okay? That's how things appear to us. Okay? So that's how things appear to the world, but that's what Aryas, beings who have realized emptiness, they see that as false. Why? Because they've realized that all these things lack any kind of inherent nature. What has been considered false by the world of humans, together with gods, Mara, Brahma, and amongst the renunciates, Brahmins, gods, and humans, that has, by the Aryas, through their perfect knowledge, been well seen to be really true. So if you talk to worldly people, about emptiness, they say emptiness is false, doesn't exist. But that's precisely what the Aryas say is true. So here the Buddha's pointing out the difference between what worldly people see and what Aryas see when they're in meditative equipoise. What worldly people see and they think is true, like everything around us, Aryas see is false. It doesn't exist the way it appears. What worldly beings see as false, something like emptiness or nirvana, Arya beings see as true, that those things exist the way they appear. Behold the world together with the gods, imagining self in what is not self. Attached to name and form, to body and mind, they imagine this is true or real. In whatever way they imagine it to be, in fact, it is other than that. For that is the falsity of it. For whatever is evanescent is of a deceptive nature. Nirvana is of a non-deceptive nature that the Aryas know as truth. They, by the penetration of truth, become free from craving and fully quenched. Fully quenched, craving is sometimes described as being thirsty. You're thirsty, you want something. When your thirst is quenched, you're free from that craving. Okay, so that's nirvana. So footnote 19, where is that from? That's from the Sutta Nipata also. Okay, now, emptiness. In the Pali Suttas, selfless, anatta, is found more frequently than empty or suna. And both words are used more often as adjectives than in their noun forms. So they're used as, mostly you hear selfless instead of selflessness, or empty instead of emptiness. Also, emptiness does not necessarily indicate the ontological status of objects as it does in the Sanskrit tradition. Rather, empty has two main meanings. One is empty of self, or what pertains to self, so it's not the person, or what pertains to the person, and empty of attachment, anger, and confusion. So there it's referring to nirvana, because nirvana is empty of attachment, anger, and confusion. But saying empty of attachment, anger, and confusion gives you a slightly different feel than saying empty of inherent existence, because inherent existence never existed, yet attachment, anger, and confusion did. Okay, slightly different feel. There are other meanings for empty or emptiness as well. For example, each meditative state in a series is empty of the features of the previous lower state. So there's, in the Majjhima Nikaya, there's the shorter sutra on emptiness and the greater sutra on emptiness. And in them, the Buddha starts out kind of, he's talking about like an emptiness of other. Yeah, the forest is empty of all the sound of the city. Okay, so this kind of thing. Yeah, the monastery is empty of the trees. And so in that sense, each, you're focusing on each in a series of phenomena, and each is empty of being the previous step. Okay? And then somehow it jumps to selflessness in there. I've never quite understood it. Okay. The Buddha considers emptiness an important topic and encourages monastics to pay attention to it. He expresses concern about the long-term survival of the profound teaching and advises, so this is in the Pali Sutta, you should train yourselves thus. When those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, are being recited, okay, so you should train your mind to think, we will be eager to listen to them, will lend an ear to them, will apply our minds to understand them, and we will think these teachings should be studied and mastered. Geshe Tekchok often refers to a passage. I don't know in what sutra, but he says where the Buddha is talking to Ananda and saying that, of all the teachings on emptiness is the most profound, and, everybody should really focus on that one and he told Ananda, do not let this teaching get lost. Okay, so I wonder the relationship, whatever sutra Geshe-la was quoting and this one, what the relationship between them were. The Dhammapada in verse 93 speaks of emptiness as meaning nibbana, the object of an arhat's meditation. So the Patisambhidhamagga says, what is the supreme emptiness? This Dhamma is supreme, the stilling of all formations, the relinquishing of all attachments, the destruction of craving, dispassion, cessation, nibbana. Okay, so again, equating emptiness with nirvana. Nagarjuna in the Karikas indicates that emptiness of inherent existence is taught in the Pali Canon, even though the term inherent existence was not used there. And he quotes, the transcendental Lord, through understanding it exists and it does not exist, refuted both existence and non-existence in the Katayana Sutra, which is the Kachanagota Sutra in the Pali Canon. Okay, so through understanding it exists and it does not exist, refuted both existence and non-existence. So you have to understand this correctly. Existence means inherent existence. Non-existence means total non-existence. So as we've been seeing all day, both of those extremes do not exist. Okay? Through understanding it exists dependently and it does not exist inherently, then we will realize that both of those extremes are refuted. Okay? And then quoting the Kachanagota Sutra directly, this is the sutra that Nagarjuna referred to. The Buddha said, this world, Kachana, for the most part depends upon a duality, upon the notion of existence, eternalism or inherent existence, and the notion of non-existence, nihilism or total non-existence. But for one who sees the origin of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, there is no notion of non-existence in regard to the world. And for those who see the cessation of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, there is no notion of existence in regard to the world. Okay? So for somebody who sees the origin of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, so somebody who knows dependent arising, there's no notion of total non-existence regarding the world. So such a person who understands dependent arising does not say everything just doesn't exist whatsoever. everything is a total illusion, nothing exists. They don't say that. Why? Because they've realized dependent arising. And for one who sees the cessation of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, okay, so somebody who's seen emptiness, there is no notion of existence, meaning inherent existence, in regard to the world. Here the Buddha refutes incorrect metaphysical assumptions in the minds of people who wonder if the world exists or not. Remember in Precious Garland, they talk about this. All these people are coming to the Buddha all the time. Does the self exist? Does it not exist? Both and neither. Does the universe have a beginning? Does it not have a beginning? Both and neither. Does the Tathagata exist after death? Does the Tathagata not exist after death? Remember? All these people are coming and asking the Buddha these questions, and the Buddha never responds to any of them. He remains silent. And then the ignorant people think, well, that he doesn't say anything because he doesn't know the answer. But the wise people understand why the Buddha is remaining silent, which is because the people who are asking these questions are asking them with the assumption that things have an inherent nature, that they inherently exist. So within people having that assumption, he can't truthfully say things exist or don't exist, because that person would get totally the wrong idea. If he said, the piece of paper doesn't exist, then they would think an inherently existent piece of paper doesn't exist at all, where maybe the Buddha is referring to it's empty, but they would say, oh, it doesn't, they would think it exists at all. And if he says the paper exists, they would think the paper inherently exists. So for that reason, he doesn't respond to any of their questions. Okay. So those with eternalistic view believe that if the world exists, it exists forever, permanently. Seeing some continuation of identity between a cause and effect, they believe a permanent entity bridges the cause and its result. There is some permanent something in the cause that continues to the result. Because if there weren't, then the cause would just totally cease. And how could you get the result? So this view does not arise in a person who has right view, who knows that each moment in a continuum of cause and effect arises due to causes, okay? And it arises due to causes, it ceases, and is followed by a new moment in the continuum without any inherent something going from one moment to the next. Okay? That's the way a person with wisdom understands. Another person says, no, there's got to be something. There's got to be something that goes from that cause to that effect. Otherwise, how do you carry the energy of the cause to the effect? They say, how does that become the effect if there's nothing in that cause that zaps over to the effect? Okay? So that's because they don't understand dependent arising. And they think that unless things are inherently existent, when something ceases, then it totally goes out of existence. So they have that problem. Okay, a person with a nihilistic view. See, a person who with an eternalistic view and a person with a nihilistic view, they actually, it seems like they hold the opposite views, because the eternalist says everything exists inherently and things exist eternally with their own nature. The nihilist says when they cease, no continuum, doesn't exist. Okay, so it appears like they have two opposite beliefs. Actually, both of these people have the same confusion. Both of them confuse inherent existence with existence. They think they're the same thing. They don't realize there's the difference between inherent existence and existence, meaning dependent existence. And also, both these people don't see the difference between total non-existence and an object ceasing, but having a continuum. Okay? And instead, they think, or they don't see the difference between emptiness and total non-existence. So they think when you talk about emptiness, you're saying nothing exists whatsoever. Yeah, there's no continuum. Okay, so both the eternalists and nihilists have the same misconceptions. It's just the eternalists, when confronted with, well, are they inherently existent or are they totally non-existent? They get scared. They don't want to say things are totally non-existent. So then they say, oh, they're eternal, they're inherent existence. The nihilists say, okay, in the case of something that's inherently existent ceasing, it goes totally out of existence. It doesn't exist at all. Okay, so they both see the same situation, and they both have the same misunderstandings, but they reach opposite conclusions. Okay, so both of them have problems in establishing both conventional existence and the emptiness of inherent existence. I know this is difficult. Think of it as planting seeds. Okay? A person with nihilistic view sees something cease and concludes it has no continuation whatsoever. When a person dies, no being is reborn. Now, we find that a lot in present society. And we find the eternalist view, too. A person dies, and their soul goes to heaven, and they exist in heaven forever, unchanging. We have those same views now. A person, someone who thinks that the self and body are the same, or that the mind is an emergent property of the brain, concludes that when the body ceases at death, the person also totally ceases. There is no rebirth, no experience of karmic results, and no possibility of liberation. Okay? If that were true, the best way to end suffering would be for everybody to die. But nobody really thinks that's such a good idea. Maybe a couple of people. They think that if they commit suicide, their suffering will end. It doesn't. Suicide doesn't stop suffering. It just puts you into another kind of suffering. Okay. A person with right view knows that after death, someone new arises due to causes and conditions. The death of a person and the ending of the world serve as causes for what subsequently arises. This process of continuous, dependently arising change occurs without there being an enduring entity that goes from the previous time to the later time. To refute both eternalism and annihilation, the Buddha speaks of dependent arising. So this is from the same sutra. All exists, Kachana. This is one extreme. That means everything inherently exists. That's one extreme. All does not exist, meaning it totally doesn't exist. This is the second extreme. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dharma by the middle. With ignorance as condition, formative actions come to be, and so on, okay, through the rest of the 12 links. Such is the origin of this whole mass of dukkha. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes cessation of formative actions, and then the cessation of all the other links. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of dukkha. Okay, let's finish this chapter. Okay, so then what carries the karma? What carries karmic seeds from one life to the next has been a topic of concern for Buddhists and for non-Buddhists from early on. The Pali tradition explains that a findable self is not required for rebirth to occur and for karma to continue to the next life. Remember Buddha-Ghosa's quotation from the morning? Yeah, where he said, where did he say it? 152. Yes, there is no doer of a deed or one who reaps the deed's result. Phenomena alone flow on. No other view than this is correct. Okay? So we're speaking of the Pali tradition here. So you don't require any findable self for rebirth. Rebirth is based on the continuity of consciousness, with each moment of mind connected to the preceding and subsequent moments as members of the same causal continuity. It is through the continuity of the stream of mind that memories, habits, karmic energy, and so forth are preserved. At death, the mind stream continues on, assuming the support of a new physical body. This impersonal process occurs without a findable self. A person is nominally identified because there is a causal continuity of the aggregates, meaning here the mental aggregates. While the Pali Suttas and commentaries occasionally use the metaphor of seeds to illustrate karma, they do not explain karma as leaving seeds that have some kind of substantive nature. So I wonder if this is a metaphor from the Sarvastivadis. It's interesting that it's not really found so much in the Pali tradition. The prevailing view is that an action, karma, establishes a potential to bring forth its fruits when suitable conditions come together. However, the action does not possess an enduring existence and does not exist somewhere. That's the difficulty with the word seed, because we immediately make it much more substantial just because of the association in English with that word, even though it doesn't mean that. For example, the notes of a melody do not abide in a lute, ready to be brought forth when the lute is played. Yeah? So it's not that the whole tune is inside the musical instrument, waiting for somebody to play it so it comes out. Okay? Rather, depending on the lute, the air, the person's breath, and the musician, the melody arises. Buddha-Ghosa says, when a result arises in a single continuity, it is neither another's nor from another's karma, because absolute identity and absolute otherness are excluded here. Okay? So absolute identity means a single, unchanging person that persists from the time of creating the karma to the time of experiencing the result. So some real person that is there when you create the karma and when you create the result. And this is what the non-Buddhists say, because there's got to be that kind of real person. Otherwise, how do you connect the cause with the result? There's got to be some substantive something that goes, and some person that goes, so that you can say this person created the cause and that same person experienced the result. So they feel the necessity to establish some kind of inherent existence, something, to establish how karma goes from cause to effect. Absolute otherness means that one person does the action and a totally different, unrelated person experiences the result. Okay? So here we are again, inherent existence. Either it's identical or it's totally different. Yeah? Instead, there is a continuity of experience, a continuity of an impermanent person that is continuously changing and spans from one life to the next, enabling karma to bring its results. But you can't pinpoint exactly what that person is. This explanation accords with the Madhyamaka explanation that the person who creates the action is neither inherently one with nor totally unrelated to the person who experiences the result. The person is designated in dependence on the aggregates, and therefore the I exists by mere name. So this Samadhi Raja Sutra, the King of Concentration Sutra, says, the states of samsara are like a dream. There is no one who dies in this world. No inherently existent person who dies. There is no one who dies in this world and passes or migrates to another. Still, actions done are never lost, and virtuous and non-virtuous effects ripen in the world. There's no real person that you can track in this life that goes to the next life. Yet still, the energy from the actions this person does not get lost, and the continuity of that person in the future experiences the results. Neither permanent nor falling into annihilation, actions neither accumulate nor endure inherently. Yet you cannot do actions without meeting their effects, nor do you experience the effects of others' actions. Okay? So we can't do actions and create that causal energy and have no result come, unless, of course, we purify it or impede it from ripening. Okay? Nor do we experience the effects of others' actions. Meaning, it's not that somebody else creates the karma and I create the result of their karma. I experience the result of their karma. Okay. Madhyamakas describe two repositories of karmic seeds, one temporary and the other constant. The continuity of the mental consciousness that functions during our lives is the temporary basis of karmic seeds. The mere I, the I designated in dependence on the aggregates, is the continuous basis. Existing even during an Arya's meditative equipoise on emptiness, deep sleep, and death, the mere I carries the karmic seeds. Nonetheless, the mere I exists only by designation. It is not findable under analysis. So if you ask, what is the mere I want to know exactly what it is. You cannot isolate it. This brief discussion of selflessness, according to the Pali and Sanskrit traditions, demonstrates that there are many similarities. This is not surprising, since both traditions originate from the same teacher, the Buddha. No, I mean, his continuity of consciousness. The question is, when the Dalai Lama said, I'm not going to come back, does that mean he's not, his mental stream is discontinuing or what? No, of course, his mental stream continues on. There's no way for it to stop. But what he's saying is he sees the Dalai Lama as a societal institution. And he's thinking now that societal institution, that was created by human beings, does not really serve to benefit the Tibetans, because as what happened with the Pension Lama, the child that was identified, by the Tibetans was then put in house arrest, and another child put in the position of Pension Lama. And the Chinese, the communists are saying, this is the real Pension Lama, and the Tibetans are saying no. So His Holiness is saying, I don't want the communist government identifying my incarnation, especially since when they first took control of Tibet, they said this whole system of finding incarnations was baloney. So he's saying, of course, His Holiness himself, he's a Buddha, he's a Bodhisattva, whatever you want to think. His mind stream is going to continue. I mean, out of compassion, he's going to be here to help us. But the societal institution of the Dalai Lama, I think he feels more or less that it's time for that to end. Yeah?
What do you mean with causal energy?
When there's a cause created, the cause has some potential to bring in a result. So that's what I mean by causal energy, the potential inside the cause to bring the result. Of course, if you look and say, well, what's the potential? That's going to be a bit hard to find. Mm-hmm.
So, what's my...
Okay, so you're having difficulty with the idea that the seed must, that the cause must cease for the result to arise. And you're giving the example of when you see in time-lapse photography the seed growing into a sprout. At the beginning of the time-lapse photography, you have the seed. At the end, you have the sprout. Does the sprout still exist? Does the seed still exist when you have that sprout? It ceased.
Mm-hmm. When it was talking about the past, present, and future.
Yeah.
And how the future exists, but it's not when you say it exists. I'm trying to.
Okay. Yeah. So it's about, what is a past phenomena? What is a future phenomena? Yeah. And do they exist somewhere? So past and future phenomena exist, but they are not the past. The past of me exists, but it is not me. It's not like there's some time machine you can take back, and then there's children who looks exactly like she looked then. It's not like that, okay? The past phenomena is what we label, because remember, everything exists by designation, yeah? So we're designating, the cessation of the present phenomena because it arose, it did exist, and now it ceased. The causes for it ceased. Yeah, so it's no longer there. We're designating that absence due to its ceasing as the past phenomena. Okay. And the future one, so the future children, tomorrow's children exists, but it's not like there I am, how I'm going to look tomorrow, existing in some other realm waiting to pop into the present. Yeah, what we call the future children is the basic causes, the substantial causes and some of the cooperative conditions for children existing, but not all of them exist, so the result isn't complete. So we call that the future phenomena. Okay? So, with the past phenomena, okay, right now, yesterday doesn't exist. But we can't say yesterday is totally non-existent, because if it were totally non-existent, it never would have existed. But there's a difference between yesterday never having existed and yesterday having existed and then ceased. Yeah, so there's the same in the sense that yesterday is not happening now. But yesterday isn't totally non-existent because at one point it existed, and so there's some residual something. That's a very interesting question, because it's a directly perceiving mind. It's not that kind of super knowledge. It's I don't think it's a conceptual mind. Yeah? Do you know? I think it's a directly perceiving mind with the mental consciousness. Yeah? But you couldn't, again, be seeing who you were in a past life as if you were still happening. Yeah? So exactly what they see and how they see it, I don't know. Yeah, maybe we have to gain that ability. Yeah, know what's happening in hypnotism when somebody remembers the past. I've seen films of people just hypnotized and talking about the past. Now, exactly how they're seeing it, I don't know. We'd have to ask them, is it like a movie where you're watching yourself out there? Or is it like a dream where you're a character in it, but you have, and what's the difference between hypnotic memory and the super knowledge of remembering it? Yeah, there might be a difference between how something appears to your mind in those two.